Hello, everyone out there. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, depending on where you are. And while we are at it, I would love to hear a hello back from all of you out there. Um, I can see people still joining here. So, a very warm hello from GMATWhiz. I am going to be your host for the evening, and welcome to this session on in-depth reading strategy. Just give me a moment, guys, while you post your hellos and highs, and let me just start sharing my screen. So there it is for you. That's our agenda in brief. We're going to talk about in-depth reading strategies which will help you avoid rereading passages, okay? So a very warm welcome to you all once again. Let's hear a welcome. Let's hear a hello from you guys too. That will show me who I am connecting with. And in the meantime, let me go ahead and introduce myself a bit quickly. So I am going to be your host for this session. I'm Sunita. I'm the verbal head at GMATWhiz, and I have been in this prep industry for the last decade. I've prepped over 30,000 students, and which basically, this is a little difficult, talking about yourself all the time, but that actually gives you kind of idea about the kind of exposure I've had in this industry and how well I understand my students' pain points. In fact, I'm going to talk about one of those pain points today. Let me quickly tell you about today's agenda. In the meantime, let me also see. All right, so hi out there, guys. Would love to hear from you. I can still see, I think there's some lag out there, guys. Let me hear a warm welcome. A very warm welcome to all of you, and let me hear back a hi from you. And then we can get started on our agenda for the session. All right, so I can see. Hi, all right, let me just scroll on. Hi, Parik. Hello, Ashutosh. Nice to see you guys. So, Parik, we're going to talk about that also in a way about mood of the author. Rather than calling it the mood of the author, we have a slightly broader category where we talk about opinion of the author, and then we, discuss about how to understand the mood of the author. So let me just quickly welcome all my viewers. Parik, Ashutosh, hi, Hari Prasad. Hello, Ish. Hi, Manish. Hi, Avani. Hello, Siddharth. Hi, Ayub. Wow, very nice to see all of you. So let me quickly discuss the agenda without more delay. Now, the agenda that I'm going to lay out, we are going to discuss not exactly in that order, but these are the main things that we're going to talk about in this session today. Why is RC so important? Okay, many of y'all might think that RC, CR, SC is equally important, which they are. However, RC has a small edge over the others, and I'm going to discuss about that. We are also going to very quickly talk about why most people do not do well at RCs, okay? And when I'm saying most people, I'm talking about more frequently faltering at RCs rather than SC or CR. That's what I've seen in my experience, all right? Students are able to recover their CR skills, if they were making mistakes. They're able to recover their SC skills if they were making mistakes in SCs. But in terms of RC, or when it comes to RC, it's not so easy. So why is it not so easy? We're going to talk about that today. Lot of, in fact, most of us are worried about the time. And there's an irony when we're talking about time and RC, So I'm going to talk about that irony. Just to give you a clue about what I'm going to talk about there is, just think about, the proverb, haste makes waste. And therein lies the irony of time here, okay? So we're going to talk about that. And this is going to be the most important part of our program. We are going to actually talk about the strategies. I'm going to demonstrate to you live what are these strategies which can help you avoid rereading passages and get that high accuracy on your RC questions, okay? So just to tell you very clearly so that you would know what to expect, I'm going to bring up 3 different passages, okay? again, remember, the idea is not to see how many questions you're going to get correct. The idea is to show you how you can improve your reading through certain strategies. And towards that extent, each of the passages, I'm going to also give you a question each to solve. All right. Okay. And then, of course, towards the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So all set, guys? All set to go. Hi, Ajay. Hello, Alberto. Nice to see you. So Alberto is from Mexico out there. Wonderful to have all of you from all around the globe. In fact, this is one of the best things about this profession. You get to meet so many people who are united by their goals and by their problems. In fact, you will see most of you today suffer from the same thing when it comes to RCs. So very quickly, let me talk to you about the importance of RC, guys. All right. Now, understand the format of an RC passage. You're going to get at least the very minimum 2 questions, or 3 or 4, or in some cases even 5, right? 5 questions, one after the other. All right. And while that's the format of the RC, the algorithm of the exam will not differentiate whether it's an RC question you're doing or it's a CR question you're doing. All right. If you get one RC question incorrect, the next RC question that comes up will be of slightly lower difficulty level, okay, which itself is bad for you. But if you get chances of you getting that consecutive question incorrect is higher, because if you haven't understood the RC passage, you might make more mistakes together on that RC. So consecutive mistakes on RC mean it's like suicide. You're committing suicide for yourself. All right. So if you get a single CR question wrong and you move to the next question, which is an SC question, okay, you can kind of recover, and you can have a gap between the next few SC or CR questions. But in case of RC, if you haven't understood the RC passage, chances of making more mistakes and consecutive mistakes is increased manifold, guys. And that's a very, very big reason why you must ensure your RCs go well. And that is why RCs are more important. In fact, we have assimilated a lot of data. We have actually experimented, and we have also put together a lot of ESR reports from our students, and we have identified without doubt that a student, let's say we have 3 students, and so one student does well in CR but not in the other areas. One student does well one student who does badly in CR but well in the other areas. There's another student who does badly in SC but good, performs well in the other areas. And let's say we have one student who performs not so well in RC but properly in the other areas. We've seen that the student who does not perform well in the RC suffers the most. Hi, Snehashish, Shomabho. Wonderful. Welcome to the session, guys. Okay, so that's why RC is very, very important. And I'm sure those of you out there, some of you who've already taken the exam once or who have been taking the mocks, you'll know that if you get consecutive RC questions wrong, you're really in a soup. Okay, so that's how important RCs is. It can actually make or break your score, guys. All right. Okay. So having told you about the importance of RC, let me ask you guys, what is it about RCs that puts you in a tizzy? I'm waiting for you. You can answer me, post your thoughts in the chat box, guys. Yeah, Shisha, Nathan, getting RCs, getting a low score in RCs would have impacted your score badly. I'm sure of that. Hi, Shantani. Hello, Sudeep. So guys, what is it about RCs which scares you, or what you feel that this is something in the RCs which is why RCs never turn out well? Okay, so just moving on gaming. Okay, I hope that that's not obviously your name. Says it's the tough language of the RCs. All right. Yes, Nathan, with a 55 in RCs, your percentile is going to take a big, 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 big time dive. Just change that percentile a bit to somewhere around 75 and 85 and you would have been good to go. Rishabh has a very important point to put there, that Rishabh says that it is reading between the lines, or in other words, drawing inferences. Sudeep says, Sudeep is asking Nathan, I think. And then let's see, Shayantani is saying that it's It's the language. Sometimes she doesn't understand it. Ashutosh says time management is a problem. Manish is saying he's unable to understand some parts of the passage. Rachit, hi, Shaurya and Rachit. Shaurya says lack of focus is a problem. So I guess, Shaurya, what you're trying to say is it's not easy to focus throughout the RCs, no? I understand that. Rachit says sometimes it's all correct and sometimes the accuracy falls. That's a very interesting observation, Rachit, and we'll talk about why that is happening. Why you have a hit and miss, Hit and misses happen because your strategy is not in place. In fact, today we're going to talk about strategies. Vishwadeep says complexity and convoluted words. I'll show you, Vishwadeep, today how complexity can be simplified and convoluted words can be understood with the help of the context. Okay. Hi, Sheila. Sheila says passages are boring. Yeah, Sheila, they are. Sometimes they are. Okay. So Ashutosh says, I'm a slow reader and the vocab is heavy. Mhm. But you can still make it, Ashutosh. Mm, so let's see. All right. So I think from all your comments, Vikas says time versus complexity versus need to move fast. Wow, Vikas, I can actually literally see you facing that dilemma. All right, guys. So wonderful to know connect with you in that manner. And I'm sure most of you are going to agree with me when I enlist this. So these are some of the most common pain points that I've spoken to with my students about. And I've realized that these are some things which are creating a mental block in your minds. It's like even before you're facing the passage, you are scared that now it's going to take time. Oh my God, if the topic is not, it's boring, I won't be able to understand. I won't be able to remember some things. Answer choices are going to be closed. How will I decide? All these are mental blocks. And therefore, oftentimes, you use different strategies to face all these fear factors. Some students look at questions for the question first and then go to the passage and search for the answer. Trust me, there are people who do that, and I have tutored many such students. When they came to me, they were actually using that strategy. Then there are lots of you out there who just quickly go through the passage because you want to save time. You tell yourself, okay, any which way I'm going to come back to the passage to reread it, so what's the point of giving time now? But the whole point is lost. You're actually taking up more time than you're saving time. Okay, and I'm going to discuss this. All right, then there are some of you who kind of just concentrate on bits and pieces of the passage and run through the rest and then go to the questions. Some of you kind of just search for the answers based on the question that is there next to the passage. Do any of these work? Well, in my experience, they don't. They cost you valuable time. And as one of you was saying, sometimes you get all correct, sometimes you get all of it wrong. That's simply because you are just using any of these haphazard approaches. It won't work. It's not a fixed strategy. It's not a strategy at all, guys. And sometimes what happens is, because you are not sure whether you mark the answer that is correct or not, you lose confidence in the middle of the exam. I mean, I've heard so many of my students tell me, Sunita, I faced a passage right at the beginning and somehow it didn't go well. And thereafter, the entire exam was, a downhill, a descent. So you don't want your lack of confidence spoil your exam, the rest of the exam. And all of this actually is happening because you haven't understood your passage well, guys. Because you want to save time, so that you can attempt all 36 questions with equal focus. And let me tell you, that won't happen. Okay, what you do is you try to squeeze time on the passages. It doesn't work. You get your RCs wrong, your score is going to fall more than it would fall if you got CR or SC incorrect, all spaced far away. So how can you overcome this lack of precise understanding of the passage is the core of our session today. Guys, are you excited? Do you want to find out what to do? Yes. Are you excited? Unless you guys tell me you're excited, you want to know what is it that you can do for your RCs, because I want to see you guys interested in this. RC can be made very, very interesting. Trust me. So I think Prashant, no, this particular, is the screen clear, guys? Okay, I've got so many yeses. Now I'm like, oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So let me get going. Now, here's a passage for you guys. Okay, and just that one question. All right. So again, I'm going to iterate. The point is not to solve, multitudes of questions. I've known students who've solved thousands of passages and not improved. So until you improve the strategy, your practice is wasted. So we are going to solve three different passages, all right, and each of them will have questions, but the focus will be what to do, how to read so as to read correctly and answer correctly. Okay, so I'm going to give you slightly more time. Okay, I'm going to give you, because I want you to employ whatever strategy you do, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to read that passage and answer that question. Please do not put in your answers in the chat box until I ask you to do so. Okay, if you finish solving the question before the 3 minute is up, just keep the question to the answer to yourself. The moment I tell you, guys, go ahead, post your answers, do that. All right, guys. I'm going to tell you all of it, Nathan. Just hold on. Don't worry. The last four questions on your GMAT are really not that important. Okay. And I'm going to give you a link where you can set up a call with our expert Piyush to discuss that particular question about the last few questions. So I think to some of you, the screen is clear. To some of you, it is not. I do not know. Can you read it? Lucy, can you read it? So Parik finds the screen is clear. How about the others? Is the screen clear? Rakesh finds it clear. I think for some of you, it might be an issue related to your network or something. All right. So get started, guys. I'll just mute myself in the meantime and see what I can do to make the screen clearer. Shantani, is it clear now? Okay. Okay, great. Fine. All right. Let me just mute myself and let me also uh, just put the camera off for the moment. You guys concentrate on the question. Guys, I'm going to give you 1 more minute. So those of you who are still kind of going through the passage, um, wrap up your thoughts. Okay, 1 more minute quickly, and then we'll begin our discussion. All right, guys, you can start putting in your answer choices. In the meantime, sorry. So, Nathan, you were asking about what to do for the last passage, right? If you get a passage towards the end, what to do. In fact, I am just going to. So, on your screens, you can see the link. You can, and this is, you can set up a call with our strategy expert, Piyush, all right, using that link, and it's free of cost, and he's going to tell you what you should do in detail, because we are kind of short on time here. So that's the link you guys can use to set up a call with a strategy expert regarding any strategy related to GMAT. All right, GMAT prep. So Piyush himself is a 740 scorer, and he is, as far as I have known, and I've known a lot of experts in the industry, I there's no one who offers better advice on strategy than him. Okay, guys, so that's the link there. Now let me just quickly read out the uh, answer choices that you guys have put in. Okay, let's see. So Ashutosh, E. Nathan says B. Sudeep says E. Siddharth, B, 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 B. Okay, I've got a lot of B's. In fact, Gaurav, Rakesh, Prashant, Sheila, Crazy, Akshata, all of you have chosen B. So it's like it's a B parade. All right, just so Sudeep has rooted for E, Ashutosh has rooted for E. Otherwise, everybody belongs to the B club. Okay, wonderful. Yes, Shomya, and I'm going to tell you why the options appear similar to you. Okay, there are two reasons why the options appear similar to you, and I'm going to point that out. So just hold on to it for a moment. I'm still waiting for some more answers. Again, I have some more additions to the B club. So there's Bishwadeep who believes it's B, Rachit believes it's B. Okay, all right, guys. Good, great, wonderful. Lucy thinks it's E. Aha, sorry, Rachit, sorry, my bad. Rachit believes the correct answer is D. So, Rachit, you're the lone rider. Let's see if the lone rider is all right, the correct one. Okay, guys. So let me just quickly hide this link here. Hold on a second. Give me a moment. Let me just clear the screen. Aha. So I hope you guys have got the link to set up that call. In case you haven't, I'll repost it down the session. Okay. All right, guys. So a little bit of question here, some questions here, guys. What were your thoughts when you were going through this passage and the question? What did you feel? Come on, quickly. And you can be frank. All right. What did you feel exactly when you were going through this paragraph and that one question? Okay, videos is asking, ma'am, what to do if you come across a passage that is long, so much so that one forgets what one reads in the beginning. Okay, videos, one small question. You watch a movie which is, you have these pocket movies, 20 minutes long movie. You watch a 1 hour long movie, you watch a 2 hour long movie, you watch a 3 hour long movie, and then you watch Inception also. And you are still able to remember everything, isn't it? How? Do you make an effort to remember it? No, right? but you show that interest in the movie, and that is how you will remember everything, because right from scene one you're weaving together everything into your memory. And we're going to do something like that today. I'm going to show you how. Okay. All right. Let me see. So Ashutosh says, too many heavy words, difficult to process. Ashutosh. Yes, yes, yes. Sudeep says, mind was not able to capture the last line. Okay, Sudeep, you have my sympathies. Nathan says, dense passage. Yes, Nathan. Okay, lots of info. Yes, that's an interesting point, Nathan. Lots of information packed. And I'm going to show you how to decode that information, guys. Okay, that's going to be our let's say the core idea, how to unlock, decode all that information that is there. Okay. Lucy felt tense. Don't worry, Lucy, after today's session you're not going to feel tense. Akshata has a very nice way of putting things. She says somewhere in between we got lost and needed to reread. That's what we are going to discuss also today, Akshata. What to do if I don't want to reread? I don't want to reread. Okay. Same kind of use being presented in different words. Rakesh, now when I read, you'll realize it's not just the same kind of use, not the same kind of use, but perhaps, yes, iteration of a particular view. All right. Nathan says it seems like the author wants to dazzle the readers. Yeah, probably. All right. Okay, guys. So let me kind of gather those thoughts together for you. Tell me if those are the things that you have gone through your mind. I'm sure they have, isn't it? As you said, see how I already knew. A lot of you felt the language was dense, too many vocabulary words. Okay. Perhaps some of you continued reading despite not understanding some of those words, or you had a really just an overall understanding, like Sudeep and some of the others were mentioning that they were not able to get hold of the or grasp the meaning of the last sentence. Okay. And then you were also, some of you were saying that the answer choices had a very close language and therefore it was difficult. And again, some of you have also said that you ended up rereading parts of passage because you got lost in the middle of the passage, right? See, so this is something that I understand, and this is something that we at GMATWhiz have addressed. So a GMAT student knows that if these are the things that he or she is going to face, what to do in such situations. Okay, guys, so let me not waste any more of your time. Okay. I'm going to now, there's a request, guys. While I show you how to read, just listen, okay? Each of you, Manoj, Ashutosh, Riya, Diksha, Sudeep, Krithika, Nathan, Prashant, Abhijit, Siddharth. Sorry if I haven't included the other names, Rakesh, Lucy, videos. Okay, each of you think that what is Sunita doing, which I did not do. Okay, all right, and that is going to be your learning. I'm going to keep explaining, but you also have to have a self realization, because each of us reads in a different manner, that what is it that I'm not doing, and which is why I did not get a clearer picture. Okay, Diksha, I'll resend that link. Give me a moment. Just give me a moment. The link is there. Did you get that, Diksha? The link? Just let me know if you have got it. Okay. And if you cannot see it yet, I'll just kind of, here it is. Can you see it now? Okay, the link is out there. All right. Great. Let me now start with the passage explanation. We are short on time, guys. So here is the passage. Now, again, a small request once again. Just listen to how I am reading, okay? The whole issue is how to read. So all your problems with the passage, difficult words, what to do, okay? Long sentences, what to do? Difficult, convoluted language, what to do? I'm going to decode all of that. Just listen, okay? All right. It is an odd but indisputable fact. And now, just these 6, 7 words. All right. And I'm already asking myself, okay, so something is an odd but indisputable fact. Who is saying this? Throughout the RC, always constantly, in fact, look out for who is saying what, because that's how most of the GMAT passages are constructed. Okay, either they would be a complete factual passage, or they would be a passage which would have lots of opinions, or it would be a mix of the two. Okay, so right away when I see the word odd, I know somebody is offering an opinion. And who is offering an opinion? Since no third party has been attributed, we are not saying that so and so is saying this, so and so is saying this. I can right away assume safely that this is the author. The author finds something odd, but does not find it disputable. And whatever that is, which the author finds odd, it's actually a fact. All right? It's a fact. But the author, for some reason, finds it illogical. So we were talking about density of information. Just look at those first 7 words. So you know that the author is going to talk about a fact, and the author does not dispute that fact, but the author at the same time finds that odd, that a fact illogical and strange. Okay. Now, if you are thinking about the time factor, guys, I'm going to address that issue later on. For now, forget about time and concentrate on the strategy. Okay, please. And so the moment I end when I come to the point of fact, I say, okay, what is that fact? Probably that's now going to be presented. So it's an odd but indisputable fact that, okay, so that is now going to introduce a fact. The 17th century English women. All right. So the fact involves a certain subject, and that subject is 17th century English women. Okay. And see how I'm using my sentence correction skills. Okay. I mean, at GMATWhiz, the course is developed where we first teach you how to read a single sentence, then multi sentences, and then even more sentences put together. All right. So I'm going to show you a snippet later on. Let's continue. So we are taught this fact involves or is related to 17th century English women. And then the part which starts with this who. Okay, who is a relative pronoun clause, and we know that it gives more information about the noun. So here this is a modifier telling me something about these English women. These English women are generally regarded as among the forerunners of modern feminism. And I'll stop here. Okay, so who are these English women? They are English women. They belong to the 17th century, but they are considered as the beginners of, or they are basically considered as early feminists. Okay, so modern feminism is as we know it today, and these English women are supposed to be the pioneers of this modern feminism. Okay, so the fact is about such women, but we still don't know what the fact is. Do not confuse the modifier to be the fact. All right, so the fact that these English women are almost all identified with the royalist side. Now see how I've connected the sentence. If you do not read your sentence by breaking it into small pieces, you are going to end up rereading that long 40-word, 50-word sentence, a 50-word long sentence. The problem is, we realize it late. Usually, the tendency will be you'll start reading from it, you will finish at words, then realize it was pretty long, and then you'll go back, you'll slow down a bit and reread it, but you'll still not get the entire grasp, and there'll be a third time when you'll reread it. All right, we don't want to do that. Okay, so here, what is the fact that the author finds odd? All of these English women, the pioneers of modern feminism, they all identified with the royalist side. Now, what can this phrase mean, identified with the royalist side? So royalist side is probably a group. If you don't already know it, then just consider that there is a side, or there is a group, or there is a particular category known as a royalist. And almost all these English women, they were related to or associated with that side. Okay, and that the author finds odd. Now, we don't know why the author finds it odd and so on right now. But understand that the author finds that all these women, all English women of the 17th century who were early feminists, they belong to this one side, and that is what the author finds odd. Okay, and let's read on. So, all identified with the royalist side in the conflict between royalists and parliamentarians, okay, known as the English Civil Wars. See how much of information. So, for now, let's say you're a student who doesn't know who's this royalist, who doesn't know who's this parliamentarian, and who does not know anything else also. Then, strictly going by the information given, what can you understand? Okay, so there is a conflict between two sides. One side is called the R side, the other side is the P side, and the conflict itself between the two sides is known as the English Civil Wars. And the author finds it very odd that all the English women who were early feminists, they belong to only one side. So, this long sentence, you have decoded into your, you have simplified it into your own words. That's there on your screen. Okay. And you would never need to go back to this part ever again. Trust me on that. Again, I'm saying the time part, we will come back to that point later. Okay. Right now, what you're doing is you're making an effort with me to understand that line. But once you have learned and built this reading skill, you will not be making an effort. Then this will come effortlessly, and the time itself is going to get reduced. But that's a different story altogether. Let's concentrate. The next part. So, since now, the moment you see the word since, we at GMATWhiz call it the transition word, and lots of these transition words are used throughout the passage, and they play a vital role. They can tell you the relationship between one sentence and the other. Okay, so let's see what this word is going to do here. Since royalist ideology, okay, so we're talking about the philosophy followed by this side called the royalist side, is often associated with the radical patriarchalism. Now, don't be scared. You don't know what is radical, you don't know what is patriarchalism. Let it be. All that you can understand here is okay, the author is now telling us that because royalist ideology is related to something called patriarchalism. And if the test maker wants me to know the meaning of patriarchalism, context will be given, guys. Okay? All right? And if they don't need you to know the meaning of that word, then the context will not be there. So don't panic either ways. So a lot of you were asking, heavy vocab, convoluted language. This is the way to decode it. Look out for context, guys. You don't have to deep dive unless and until enough information is provided to you. Look out for that information. So we are going to look out for what this patriarchalism is. However, for now, we know that this royalist philosophy is often thought to be associated with patriarchalism. Now, look at the passive construction often associated with. This means this is a general idea, general belief. All right. We don't know whether the author also believes in this or not, but the author is telling us this is the typical association drawn between royalist ideology and radical patriarchalism of somebody. So, see how every time I'm trying to find out whether it's the author's opinion or it's a fact or it's a third party opinion. This will help me. I don't know what questions will come later on. Okay. So I've got to keep in mind who is saying who is saying something and why that person is saying something. So if the author is saying something, why is the author saying something? That thing. And particularly, why is the author saying it there? Okay. So the place, the person, the reason. We keep joining those. It isn't as convoluted as it sounds, huh? You do it all the time when you watch movies and lots of such things. Okay. So don't worry about it. All right. So because royalist ideology is often related with patriarchalism of whose patriarchalism? Let's see. 17th century political theorist. All these are adjectives for Robert Filmer. But one thing I know is this guy also belonged to the same century, 17th century. Okay. All right. So royalist ideology was often thought to be related to this guy's patriarchalism, whatever that is. And you can see now right away, there is this definition of patriarchalism within those dashes. For those of you who don't know the function of those dashes, those two dashes, they are dashes, huh? Not hyphens. They introduce additional information within a sentence. Okay. So here, the moment I read a patriarchalism, that equates, I know here the author is describing which patriarchalism. Okay, this guy is patriarchalism. So what was this ideology? Because once I understand this ideology, I would also perhaps understand the royalist ideology. That's the purpose why the author is providing the meaning of patriarchalism here. The author wants me to understand what was the royalist ideology. Okay, let me read on. A patriarchalism that equates means considers equal, family and kingdom. All right. So this theory believes that family and kingdom are equal, all right, on the equal plane. And this patriarchalism asserts the divinely ordained absolute power. Now, so many words. I'm simply going to read it as asserts that the king has absolute power and it is given by God, maybe divinely ordained. All right. Okay. So this patriarchalism tells us that the power of the king, the absolute power of the king, and by analogy, which means by comparison of the male head of the household. All right. So patriarchalism is all about how a family and kingdom can be considered on the same level. And similarly, how the king is the absolute power of a kingdom. Similarly, the male is the absolute head of the household. Okay, so patriarchalism is nothing else but male dominance. It's talking about the absolute power of the male in the society. So I'm like drawing an inference here. Okay, so in that 17th century, back then, all right, uh, in among these royalists, the belief was that male was the head of the household and the king was the absolute power of the kingdom. All right, and the ideology, the royalist ideology, is based on this male dominance. They probably believed in male dominance. So I understand now here why Robert Filmer's patriarchalism has been mentioned, because the author wants me to understand what the royalist ideology was. Okay, and then the sentence continues. Oh God. So here I have to recapitulate quickly. Since because royalist ideology is often associated with patriarchalism, okay, whose patriarchalism and what we know, because of that, historians have been understandably puzzled. Okay, why does the author use the word understandably here? Who is understanding that this is obviously the author, since it is the author who is writing this? So the author believes it is understandable that historians have been puzzled. Okay, and why is it understandable that historians have been puzzled? Because royalist ideology is similar to the ideology of Robert Filmer, which is basically nothing else but the male is the absolute part, the king is the absolute. And what are these historians puzzled about? Let's read on. They are puzzled by the fact that royalist women wrote the earliest extended criticism of the absolute subordination of women. Let me stop here. Let me understand. Okay, so the fact is that royalist women, they wrote criticism of subordination of women. And women would be whose subordinates? Subordinates of men. So the royalist women did not agree with absolute power of the male. Okay, that is why they wrote against that kind of, the male dominance is going to lead to subordination of women. So the royalist women were against subordination of women. Indirectly, that means they were against absolute power of the male, and therefore the historians are puzzled that like, how come these women, they belong to the royalist side? Because the royalist ideology is all for male dominance and these women are writing against male dominance. And that is how I'm going to round up my such a long sentence, guys. If you really see, your sentence begins with this since and it hasn't ended yet. Okay, but I have got the understanding now because I have linked all the words. So the author here is telling us, he's expanding what is it that he finds odd, and he's giving the viewpoints of historians and also saying that he agrees with them that it's pretty odd that women who wrote criticisms of male dominance would come from a family which was associated or which believed in male dominance. Okay, and if we read ahead, where was this subordination of women they wrote criticism against? In the marriage and the earliest systematic assertions of women's rational and moral equality with men. So these are some of the things that they wrote about. They wrote against the subordination of women in marriage, and they wrote assertions of women's rational and moral equality with men. So these royalist women, they fought, or probably they spoke in favor of women's equality with men. Okay, and that is what the author finds odd. All right. So look at how I have rounded it up here. That long sentence, see, it ends here. I mean, your entire paragraph is made up of 3 lines, 3 sentences, not lines, sorry. So the second sentence, if you sum it up, it says, because royalist ideology, which is nothing else but Filmer's ideology, observed absolute male power, historians are understandably puzzled. Okay, here we get the author's viewpoint also, that the author also understands why the historians are puzzled. That means the author himself is puzzled, which is given right at the beginning. The author believes that the historians are understandably puzzled that women who belong to such a family criticized male power. All right, clear, guys? Okay. Now, a lot of you said you did not understand that last sentence. So before I move to the last sentence, okay, can we have a yes from your side if you have got a better understanding from the of the passage? Yes, guys? Yes. Have you got a clearer picture of the passage now? Nathan, Diksha, Manish, Siddharth? See, it's just about the way you read, you know. And trust me, guys, you can do this for any passage. This is one of the toughest passages that I have come across, but you can do it for any passage. All it takes is to make this method of reading intuitive. The moment that becomes, this method of reading becomes intuitive, your time, everything will fit in. All right, great. So let me now discuss that last sentence. All right, a lot of you said that the last sentence was a little, confusing. Now, the last sentence could have also been confusing because you didn't understand the context before it. If you don't understand what precedes, can you understand what succeeds? No, you can't. Okay, you can't. And worse, when you go to the question and try to answer the questions, you cannot go back and understand things in bits and pieces. It's like entering the movie hall after 1 hour of the starting of Inception, and you're trying to make sense of what's happening where. It won't work, right? It won't, no? Okay, great. Very nice to see that you have a better understanding. So let me complete that last, the analysis, the decoding of that last sentence for you. Okay, so far I have got, in a nutshell, I have understood that the author finds something very odd, and he's also trying to tell you what is odd about it. The fact, the odd thing is, you have a side which believes in male power, and then you have members of that side who criticize male power. Okay, and all the members who criticize, all these early feminists who criticize male power back then, all of them belong to that. Remember, he says right at the beginning, sorry if I'm using the word he, it's just kind of not to be kind of taken as very sexist, but just came to my mind, just came on the tongue. So if you read right at the beginning, it's given that the author finds it odd that almost all belong to the royalist side. And why is it odd? We can think now. It's odd because, I mean, some of you might have belonged to the royalist side, some of the early feminists. Why all? Okay, let's read on. Some historians, okay, so now the author is again mentioning the point of view of some historians. Okay, so the first sentence was the author's view. The second sentence, the author gave his or her own view along with the view of some other historians by using the word understandably. Now let's see here, by using some historians' views, does the author want to say something that he believes, or does he just want to quote some other historians? Let's see why the author is talking about some historians. Some historians have questioned, okay, what have these historians, so have questioned means these historians don't agree, they don't believe in, okay, what is it that they don't believe in? They have questioned the facile equation. Now, let's say I don't know the meaning of facile. Okay, do I need to know? Again, I'm telling you, if the test makers want you to know the meaning, okay, they'll make available context and you will learn to look out for that context. GMATWhiz, we teach you how to look out for that context. But if that word is not important, please ignore. So I'm going to ignore. Let's say I don't know the meaning of facile. I'm going to ignore. By the way, facile means easy, but I'm going to ignore it for now. Some historians have questioned the equation of, which equation, guys? Royalist ideology with Filmarian patriarchalism. So when you say question the equation, now an equation is like this. Royalist ideology equals to, what was that? Filmarian patriarchalism. So right before this sentence, we were talking about how it's a general understanding that royalist ideology is associated with Filmer's patriarchalism. So this equation has been questioned by some historians, means they don't believe that this is the case. That means there are some historians who don't believe that royalist ideology follows or is associated with Filmarian patriarchalism. This is the meaning of this portion. Clear, guys, now? Okay, so this is the meaning of this portion. And indeed, so by using the word indeed, the author is showing that he supports this questioning. Okay, let's read on. And indeed, there may have been no consistent differences between royalists and parliamentarians on issues of family organization and women's political rights. Now we have the author talking about royalists and parliamentarians. Now you might ask, how will we fit in Filmer here? Now see, royalists are associated with Filmer's patriarchalism. And here, remember right at the beginning, we had it that there was a conflict between royalists and parliamentarians, which means those two are two opposite sides. But here the author is saying it is possible that as far as family organization and women political rights are concerned, maybe the royalists were closer to parliamentarians than to Filmer. So understand that. That is the association. All right? And that is the part where the author agrees with these some historians. So I'm going to write that here. Some historians doubt that royalists followed Filmer's ideology. And the author supports this doubt and says that there may have been no difference between royalists and parliamentarian ideas. In a way, the author is therefore saying that it is possible that the royalists were closer to parliamentarians on ideas related to women than to Filmer's ideology. Okay? This part clear, guys? I'm going to move ahead. But, okay, so there's a transition word here. But in that case, in which case therefore then? But in that case means if there had been no difference between royalists and parliamentarians, then one would here means the author is also including himself, isn't it? Remember, that's the whole crux of this paragraph. He is talking about what he or she finds odd. And here, perhaps that oddity is being summed up. So if the royalists and parliamentarians, okay, had agreed on issues of family organization and women's political rights, then what would have been the natural outcome to be expected? One would expect early feminists. So who are these early feminists? The 17th century English women who all belong to the royalist side. One would expect these early feminists to be equally divided between the two sides. Aha! So the author is iterating that he finds it odd that all the early feminists belong to the royalist side. Why did some of them not come from the parliamentarian side? There must be some reason. So here is my conclusion for this last sentence, that author is rounding up, okay, and the author is concluding, making some conclusions about the oddity that the author observed at the beginning. And the author is saying, if there had been no differences between royalists and parliamentarian ideas on women and family, then half of the women feminists should have come from the parliamentarian side as well. Okay. And if I put all of this together, again, this is a totally separate module on the GMATWhiz platform, how to summarize, how to reach the main point. Okay. So see, given the background on the ideologies of the two sides, okay, so we have a certain understanding about royalist ideology, not so much understanding about the parliamentarian ideology. Okay, given that kind of background, it is odd that all the emphasis is on all 17th century English women, who were forerunners of modern feminism, okay, were royalists and none were parliamentarians. That is your paragraph for you. So, yes, guys, clear the last sentence. You can give me your feedback, guys. Have you ever read any passage like this? Do you ever read your paragraphs and passages and your sentences like this? Do you link them? And if you did, do you think it would help you? Yes. How did this go? Is the understanding clear now, guys? So Shomabha is saying that he or she, forgive me, Shomabha, if I have got the gender wrong. No, he doesn't or she doesn't read like that. Almost all can be equated with all. Yes, Asim, it can. Okay. Um, Siddharth says yes. Yes, Shomobo, if you keep practicing this, it will help you. Okay. See, you don't learn a skill in just 1 day or 1 hour or 2 hours or 2 days or 1 week. It takes time. Okay. I'll just show you in a moment, the how we have treated the skill. Um, okay. So guys, you can schedule your calls on that link. I'll just quickly okay, I'm just going to give you a link to our free trial where you can actually get a taste of this for yourself. Just give me a moment. Okay, you can do that. Just give me, yeah, there it is. So there is the free trial link, guys. All the things that I have been speaking about, some of these things you will find there on the free trial version of our course, and you can see it for yourself how it is. So, Ankit, I'm going to talk about the time factor. See, if today you wanted to learn how to drive a car or how to ride a bike or how to ride a horse for that matter, what would you do? Would you first ask about the time? No, no, you can't keep looking at your watch and learning how to, you won't do that. First, you will understand the various nuances and the mechanisms and stuff like that. Okay. First, you learn how to coordinate things together, how to put together the sentences as we did today. Once you have the understanding of how the whole mechanism works, how the gears and the clutch and the accelerator and the brake and the steering wheel works, then we'll talk about time. Okay. All right, guys, I hope you have um, kind of subscribed to the link there. All right. Wonderful. Okay, so now for the answer. Now for the answer bit. Just give me a moment. Okay. So with that understanding, now I'll just quickly go back to the question once again. Okay. The question was, the author of the passage refers to Robert Filmer primarily in order to. So in other words, this question is asking us, why does the author bring Robert Filmer into the picture in that particular position? That goes without saying. Okay, so what is the purpose? This is one of those we call, you know, application based questions, sorry, function based questions. The author is, we have to identify the function of Robert Filmer being used there. Okay, so we have to identify why the author referred to Robert Filmer's patriarchalism over there. Okay, most of you had formed the B club, if you remember. I think there was one of you, I do not recall the name exactly, who chose D, and then there were some takers for E. There were nobody who rooted for A or C, if I remember correctly. All right. Okay. So let's now again move back to, sorry for that, guys. Yeah, rethinking. So for specific questions, before you go back to the passage, or rather you should not go back to the passage, or even if you go back to the passage, it should be just for clarifying one or two small things, not for rereading. So let's pre-think. Okay, here it is. Filmer was mentioned. Now the moment I read this question, I'm telling myself, okay, Filmer was mentioned just to introduce the ideology of patriarchalism. That is what this patriarchalism meant. And we were told that this ideology, Filmer's ideology, was associated with the ideology the royalists held. And the royalist or Filmer's ideology was all about absolute power of the king. But the royalist women wrote against the absolute male power. Thus, the purpose of bringing in Filmer here was to show you that the royalist women and what they believed in was in stark contrast to what the royalist ideology was often believed to be associated with. You know, that was the purpose of bringing in the definition of patriarchalism, bringing in the association of Filmer, just to show you that that is the reason, just to show you that the women who belong to the royalist side, you know, they did not adhere to that ideology. Their ideology was different. And so if I have to now draw my understanding is, Filmer was referred to in order to, you know, drive our attention or focus our attention on this contrast between royalist ideology on one hand and the ideology of the royalist feminists on the other hand through their what they wrote, you know. Okay, and with that understanding, I am going to move to the answer choice elimination. So let's see, what does A say? Now none of you chose A, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. A says the purpose of referring to Filmer was to show that royalist ideology was more radical than most historians appear to realize. So none of you have chosen this, and this is not the correct answer. Again, I'm not going to dwell too much on this because none of you went for this. All right, clearly the purpose is not to draw a comparison between royalist ideology and historians' beliefs. Okay, the contrast is between royalist ideology and royalist feminist women's ideology. Okay, so let me go to B. Qualify. So again, I'll continue. I'll read the this answer choice by associating it with the question. So the purpose of mentioning Filmer was primarily to qualify the claim. So one part of this answer is the function qualify, the purpose qualify. So is the author qualifying something? Okay, and qualifying what? A claim. Which claim? Patriarchalism formed the basis of royalist ideology. Now, so let's understand this choice bit by bit. Qualify means, okay, to limit the strength or meaning of a sentence. Okay, so here if we say qualify the claim, basically we are saying the author is trying to give a different meaning or provide a different understanding of the claim. And which claim? Ask yourselves, does the author want to limit the strength and meaning of any claim? Does the author want to change the meaning of any claim? Does the author want to add to any claim or detract from any claim? And which claim is that? This claim. Does the author actually qualify this claim that patriarchalism formed the basis of royalist ideology? No, he doesn't say that that was not so. Okay, and at least the purpose of mentioning Filmer was not to do this. Okay, The general claim is that royalists followed Filmer's ideology. Okay, and therefore the author is not qualifying that claim by mentioning Filmer there. Therefore, this choice is not the correct answer, guys. We have dedicated a complete segment to understanding these words like qualify and evaluate and assess and discuss, and you get lots of these questions in primary purpose questions and function based questions, and it becomes a little easy to answer the question if you know what means what. So guys, can you see, since most of you, yeah, sorry, I'll just remove the link from the screen, or I think it is removed already. Thank you guys, sorry for that. I think I kind of got carried away. So guys, for those, in fact, most of you marked B as the correct answer. Can you see why B is wrong? Vishnu, you don't need to write down anything anywhere. Initially, when you're learning this technique, you might want to write down, but otherwise, just summing it up in the mind or writing down 3-4 words is good enough. I have written it out so that you can follow, clearly. Yes, guys? Is it clear why B is not the correct answer? I'm waiting for your answer. Is it clear why B is not the correct answer? So this is a 750 plus level question, Manish. Okay, thank you, Lucy. All right, great. Wow, so many yeses are really encouraging. All right. So by now, I think, sorry guys, by now I think you also know what the correct answer is. Aha, Shaumya, yes. See? Yes, the others. Would you like to revise your answers? Would you like to revise your answers? Let me take you back to that page, the answer choice page, and then maybe I'll just give you 30 seconds, not more than that. Here's the question. Exactly 30 seconds, and you can start posting your answer choices if you want to revise. So you know that B is not the answer. You know that A is not the answer. So now you can choose if you want, re-choose quickly. Yeah, Sudeep. So parliamentarian, a parliamentarian would be somebody who believes in the parliament or parliamentarianism. So in the UK, you have this side which believes in monarchy. All right, we know that the UK, Great Britain, or the British. So you have the monarchy as one power, and then it is also governed by the parliament. All right, so that's the conflict between the parliamentarians and the royalists. In fact, if you want to understand this better, I recently watched a series on Netflix. I think the Crown. It was very beautifully portrayed. Aha. So all of you are now shifting to the D club. Okay. Abhijit says it's E, but otherwise I mostly have people saying, so Siddharth, Ankita, Ida, Bishwadeep, Shantani, Rachit, Shoma, all of you are now Dhanashri, Shomabho. Okay, so E is still a contender. All right, great. Let's now finish this off. I'm going to be quick and decisive out here. A is out, B is out, and let's see what C says. Okay, so the author is mentioning Filmer to question something. Was he mentioning Filmer to question anything? No. But let's still read on. Question the view. Which view? That most early feminists were associated with the royalist faction. This is an indisputable fact, right? The author does not question it also. The author does not raise any doubts about whether early feminists were all royalists or not. Clearly, therefore, this is not the correct answer, and nobody chose it also. Great going. Let's quickly of opposite. We'll talk about traps later. Hold on. B is the correct answer. By now, most of you have guessed that. Okay, the primary purpose of mentioning Robert Filmer is to highlight an apparent tension. Understand the meaning of the word apparent tension. Tension means opposition, na? Some sort of contrast. So the author wants us to focus on the contrast between royalist ideology, which is Filmerian ideology, and the idea of the early feminists. That's the idea that's in line with our pre-thinking. That's the correct choice, guys. Okay. So if you read the right way, you will never have to go back to the passage, or at least almost never. Okay. Even if you do have to go back, that will be for a very, very short visit, not to reread almost the entire chunk. We'll not go back to E. Ashutosh is of mentioning Robert Filmer is to argue. Okay. So let's see, is the author is definitely trying to say something, but whether the author is trying to argue means convince somebody of something or not, let's see. That royalists held conflicting opinions on issues of family organization and women's political rights. Guys, refer to this line. Indeed, there may have been no difference between royalists and parliamentarians. All right. And this choice is just a distortion of this line. Opinions, instead of say, we have read in the passage that the author was somewhere talking about royalists and parliamentarians and conflicting opinions. Okay, and here we are talking about royalists holding conflicting opinions. Royalists among themselves did not hold conflicting opinions. That's not what the author is trying to say here. He's just trying to tell you that royalists seem to have followed Filmer, but Filmer's ideology was in contrast to um, the royalist women's ideologies, and that's odd. So to point out that oddity and that contrast is why the author mentioned, not to say that the royalists held conflicting opinions on issues of family organization and women's political rights. Okay, so that's that. It's a distortion of some other information. In fact, that's a very classic trap. Take some familiar idea from the passage, twist it a bit here and a bit there, but let the student be confused, because the student, GMAT test makers are also familiar with the tendency of students to quickly read the passage. And therefore, you fall in that trap. Okay, guys. So the key difference in the way I read, the way we at GMATWhiz teach you to read is, don't concentrate on reading speed. Concentrate on comprehension. It's not reading that is being tested. It's reading comprehension that is being tested. So you pay attention to your comprehension, the rest will fall in place, guys. As I was pointing out to Ankit earlier, that if you just think about time, you'll never comprehend. Half your brain will concentrate on the time factor. But if you concentrate on the comprehension factor, you will realize that you're actually saving time. I'm going to talk about the irony later on, the saving of time and the spending of time. So this entire methodology of reading, the strategy is called involved and evolved reading. Okay, and at GMATWhiz, we teach you, a GMAT student learns how to read like this. Okay, so involved and evolved reading is nothing else but reading, putting yourself in the place of the author, thinking like the author, understanding the author's point of view. How to do that? You've seen me do that. Break sentences into small chunks, derive the meaning. For subsequent sentences, keep relating back to the previous sentence. Okay, ask yourself questions like why? What is the author trying to tell us? Try to understand that. Take the help of transition words and conjunctions. Okay, they will help you to relate back the meaning. And then finally, summarize each paragraph. Okay, clear? Now, for being able to do all of this, you need to build the right RC skills. You need to know precisely where to pause, how to take care of complex words, how to recognize a fact from an opinion, and how to understand how the fact is being used to derive an opinion, differentiate author's opinion from the third party opinion, understand the intent of the author, or understand the intent of, here we were trying to understand the reason why the author was mentioning Robert Filmer. So these are small small things which put together lead you to developing the RC skill as a whole, guys. All right. So a GMATWhiz student learns how to read the passage first. If you see, we dedicate nearly 10 hours or so only to, build this skill. If you see here, just to build, that's the skill builder part. Okay, that part is not even where we are talking about how to draw inferences and what are the traps and how to draw the main purpose of the passage. That part is all about how to read in a certain manner. And a GMAT student, even before he or she reaches complex questions and complex passages, he is ready with this skill. Okay. And similarly, you can see small things, small video lessons, like how to note the transition word, how to understand the author's opinion, how to differentiate between the author's opinion and the other party's opinion, how to understand what each of these opinions means. Okay, different small video lessons to help you build one aspect of the skill and finally put all of it together. Okay, so with that, let me just quickly just give me a moment, guys. I'm going to bring up the second passage, but in the meantime, okay, let me just quickly look at some of your questions. Nathan says the passage gives the impression that royalism is based on patriarchalism. So that's a wrong impression. Remember, the author is not saying that absolutely royalism is, the author is neither disagreeing nor agreeing completely with the fact that royalism and patriarchalism are same. But you get the impression that since there's a conflict between the two sides, they could not have been based on each other, Nathan. Could they? Okay. All right. Nathan is asking, if the royalist feminists question patriarchalism, then they would not be royalists. So remember, they were associated, they were identified, their identity belonged to the royalist side. So again, these were royalist feminists, right? Royalist means they belong to the royalist side. So it's possible that they belong to the royal families. And while they belong to the royal family, they did not write like a royalist. That's the idea. Okay. Finding something odd but indisputable, Abhishek. Remember, he's not disputing it. So the fact is true. There's no disputing it. All right. Therefore, he's not questioning it. Wonderful, Anup, that you got that right. Okay. Great. So that's that. Coming up next, guys, another, and this time this is an in-house question. Okay, we pride ourselves on being able to bring to the platter questions which are absolutely GMAT-like. All right, so I'm sure you're raring to go. Okay, guys. All right, let me quickly bring up the next passage for you. Here it is. Go ahead. It's a very short passage. You have, I'll give you 4 minutes. Okay, so that you can employ the reading strategies that you have just discussed. So guys, just hold on to your answers. Uh, let everybody solve. Okay, Kanak? So not an issue. The others, just hold on to your answers. When I tell you to post your answers, then you post them. Right, guys? It seems most of you, a lot of you have finished answering, and you're impatient also. So great. Let's see. You can put in your answer choices, guys. You can start putting in your answer choices. So I'm just going to read out. So Kanak believes it's B. Asim believes it's C. Akshata believes it's C. Then let me see. Vishnu believes it's C. Anubhav says C. So it seems we are forming a C club this time. Ashutosh says it's B. Nathan believes it's C. Abhishek says it's B. So again, so it seems to be this time around, there's a kind of division between the B club and the C club. Okay, wonderful. Bipin says it's A. All right. Shomya says it's B. Mhm. So, guys, did you try to read in the involved and evolved manner? Because, to be very honest, you wouldn't have been able to put forward your answers so quickly. But I guess you're trying, right? Trust me, you have to first accept that this method is going to work. Trust me on this. Lucy says it's C, Prashant B, Pishwadeep A, Shantini A, Ida says A, Asim says it's C. If I've missed out anybody's name, not intentional, guys. Siddharth believes it's A. Okay, let's quickly discuss this, guys, because again, time is short and time is running. All right, let me begin. To put things simply, so the author is going to simplify things. Induction emphasizes the individual. So we are talking about, I'm going to be a little faster this time, guys, because the first passage, the intention was to deep dive and show you how to read in an involved manner. But this time I'm going to assume that you have understood that, and I'm going to be a little faster nonetheless. To put things simply, so okay, the author is going to simplify something. All right. Induction emphasizes, so there's something called induction. If I don't know what it is, induction stresses the individual. All right. So this induction thing lays emphasis on the individual, that, a single. Whereas, so the whereas is a transition word here. We're going to talk about a contrast. Deduction begins with generalization. Okay. So the author is talking about two things, induction and deduction. Induction is all about the individual, and deduction seems to be about the generalization. Okay, so this statement is telling me the author most likely is going to talk about the difference between these two, whatever they are. They are at least nouns that I know. Science largely began with a focus on deduction. Now I'm beginning to think, why is the author telling me here science began in what manner? And why is the author telling me that at the beginning the focus was on deduction? So at the same time, if you ask yourself that question, the answer that might come up is perhaps the author is going to tell us later on things changed. Maybe later on the focus shifted. You don't have to do this, but once you get into the groove of reading in an involved manner, this will start happening. So science began. When science began, it was focused on deduction. And in what way was it? It was focused on deduction, trying to find universal laws. So science was trying to find universal laws, hoping to explain about the world, and towards that extent, the focus was on deduction. So, and what is deduction? Generalization. Okay. In the 19th century, so now we are traveling down in time, beginning and now in the 19th century, generalizations means, in other words, deductions, reached a pinnacle of overuse. Never mind if you don't know the meaning of pinnacle, deduction was overused. So initially the focus was on deduction. Perhaps it was used so much that by the time it reached as the 19th century came, it was being overused, particularly for explaining human characteristics. All right. So in what sense was it being overused? In this sense. All right. While, there I have another transition word, while deduction became disfavored because of those missteps. Okay, so now I understand why the author was telling me that deduction was the focus at the beginning, but gradually, because it was overused, it lost favor. Okay, so while deduction lost favor because it was overused, those missteps would refer to the overuse. Induction rose to favor on the heels of more quantitative techniques. So I'm inferring that deduction perhaps did not use so much of quantitative techniques for describing the individual objects of study, but induction, which emphasized on the individual, used more of these quantitative techniques, and that is why it came into favor. So if I have to summarize the whole thing, the passage is talking about two terms, and it's telling me what these two terms do. One stresses on specific, particular, individual, singular, single, whatever way you'd like to see. Deduction starts from making generalizations. By the 19th century, too much of generalization had been used. Subsequently, induction gained popularity. So if I sum it up, the author talks about two terms, induction and deduction, and shows how the former gained favor over the other. That's it. Okay. Now, since our question is more related to the second paragraph, let me go to the second paragraph. The problem of induction is, all right, so in the first paragraph, the author talks about how induction gained favor, but now here the author is trying to tell us it might have gained favor, but it had its own share of problems. What was it? The impossibility of observing every individual case. So remember, induction emphasizes on the individual, but it is impossible to observe every individual case. And then the author uses the transition words, in other words. So the author is going to explain what he or she means by saying that you cannot observe every individual case. The author says there is always uncertainty about what hasn't been directly observed, and it is impossible to observe everything. Okay, let's take an example here quickly. Let's say there are 1,000 cases. Okay. What the author is saying here is you cannot observe all 1,000. Okay. So maybe you can observe some part of it and some you cannot. So let's say out of 1,000, and this is what I'm thinking. Let's say I have say 700 cases which I can observe, and I have 300. See, I'm just taking a random number, okay? It can be equal also, it can be more or less also. 300 cases which I cannot observe, which means I can't observe all, but I can observe some of them individually. Okay, this is what the author is saying. And you will always have uncertainty about what hasn't been directly observed. That means you will never be clear about this portion. There'll always be doubts. Okay, see, now I literally draw this diagram when I don't understand things. I do. But you will see, this is not going to be the kind of writing or diagrams which is going to take up too much of your time. It is just to explain things to yourself. So, okay, to help fill the gap between observation. That means, what is the gap? The gap is this 300. So to help fill the gap of this 300, what do? We make generalizations that are based on what has been observed so far. So the generalization is made on these 700 which has been observed. So out of 1,000 cases, I observed only 700. I could not observe 300. Okay. But what to do for those 300 cases? How do I bring in data? Okay. I go back to the 700 which I observed. I draw some generalizations. Drawing some generalization means I draw some commonalities, some common factors, and I use those common factors and generalizations to fill the gap of that 300. Is this clear, guys? Did you understand the passage in this manner? Did you understand the passage in this manner so far, guys? A yes or no will do. Did you understand it like this? If you did not, chances are you got the question wrong. Yes? Did you understand your passage this way? Quickly. Okay, Sniper says yes. Sheshadri, Nathan says yes. Very good. If you understood it like this, very, very, very good. Anshul says yes. Padma says yes. Siddharth says yes. Wonderful. That's good. Okay, Bishwadeep says this was way easier. Wonderful, guys. So I'm so glad that the deep diving in the first paragraph, the first passage, has helped you understand this. Okay, agreed that this is slightly easier, but it's not that easier also. Okay, let me go back to my passage here. So the author is telling us how about the problem of induction. The problem is you cannot observe everything individually. You have to generalize. That's in short the problem. Then the author goes on to talk about in modern science these generalizations. Which generalizations? The generalizations that you make based on what you have observed through induction. Okay, these generalizations, or they are called predictive models, take the form of scientific models. Okay, so scientific models are formed on the basis of this part generalization and part deduction. There are different kinds of models. One of the most popular is empirical models. So the author is now giving us more information about the different what is the outcome of this induction, and how despite this problem, predictive models are made, which are scientific models. There are various kinds of scientific models, but one of the most popular is the empirical model. Defining a model as empirical emphasizes the fact that it is built from or calibrated on data. All right, so basically, the author is iterating that these scientific models are built on data, observed data. But we know that all of the data is not directly observed. 700 of the cases were directly observed, 300 of the cases are not directly observed, but are basically kind of based on generalizations that are drawn on the observed cases. And now the author is telling what is the purpose of this model. The purpose of such scientific models is to help the researcher understand system dynamics and make predictions about the future. Okay. But the application of the model, so the application of the model, which is kind of based on generalization as well, to unknown situation is deduction. So basically, we are saying what starts off with induction actually ends with deduction. If I have to kind of shorten this paragraph, summarize this paragraph, the author is talking about the problem with induction. It cannot really observe each and every case in an area of study. Conclusions, now this is my understanding here. Conclusion must be drawn, right, about the area, even if you can't study all the cases. So there is always the feeling of uncertainty about drawing conclusions without studying such left out cases. So to cover the gap of these cases which you cannot study directly, generalizations must be drawn. Okay, and that is the problem with induction. Generalizations must be drawn. And these generalizations produce models that are used to make deductions. So if I have to summarize, the paragraph talks about the problem with the process of induction and how induction helps develop generalized models used for deduction. So if you look at the flow of passage, and this is how we explain each and every passage in our platform, the author introduces two terms or processes, how one gain favor over the other. And then the author describes the process of induction and its problems and its, how it is used for deduction. So, you get questions which ask you, what is the organization of the passage? What is the function of the second para in the passage? And stuff like that. For that, you need to understand the passage, you need to summarize it, you need to understand the flow of ideas. All this mentally. You don't have to write down anything. Now let's go to a question. What was the question? The problem with induction is. So we have to basically identify the problem. And in a nutshell, I have identified the problem already through you. Let's quickly think it out. The problem is it has to finally fall back on deduction. Right? You cannot observe everything and therefore you have to generalize. And generalization is deduction. So the way I see it, the problem with induction is you have to resort to deduction. And using that, thinking about it that way, I move to the answer choice elimination. Okay. Very few of you marked it. It fails. Now, a lot of you might have been tempted to mark A because it says it fails. So this it is referring to what? It is referring to induction, right? It is referring to induction since the question is about the problem of induction. It fails in its observation of individual cases. Now, if I stop here and I ask myself, does the passage say that induction cannot observe individual cases? No. The passage says that induction cannot observe all the cases. But is it the same to say it fails to observe the individual cases? No, that's a distortion. Okay, let's look at it. So this part is definitely distorted. Let's read the second half. And has to depend on speculative measures to fill in the gaps. Now this part is true. Has to depend on something to fill gaps. But is it speculative measures? No. They have to depend on generalization, which is not purely speculation. It is based on direct observation. Remember, the generalization that is used to fill in the gaps itself is based on the observed cases. So I can't call it speculative measures. So the sentence is a combination of distortion and half-truths. Okay? Failing is the wrong word to use to say that it cannot observe individual cases. It can observe, but it cannot observe all the cases. That is the qualification that this answer choice needs. Okay? So this choice is out. B. Now, a lot of you may have kicked B out because it starts with the word its advantage. And you might think, well, and you might think this and form a bias even before you read the rest of the sentence. You might tell yourself, okay, we are supposed to identify the problem of induction, not the advantage. But please don't do that, guys. Always make sure you read the entire sentence as properly, as thoroughly as you read the passage itself. Its advantage means the advantage of induction is its basis. Okay, yes. Per the first paragraph, we know that for the first and the second paragraph, the advantage is you can directly observe cases. And what is the basis? The basis is the specific observation of individual cases. Okay, this is also true. So the advantage is its basis, and this is the basis. But it here refers to induction. Two has to resort to generalization of some specific cases. Absolutely. That's the problem, isn't it? We are saying that the problem of induction is impossibility of observing every case. Okay. And then we are saying to help fill gaps, we make generalizations. Okay. Clear? So that's the problem. And therefore B is correct. Not too many, I mean, some of you did mark B, but I hope you marked it for the right reasons. If you marked it for the wrong reasons, then it's as good as getting the question wrong. Remember, one of you was saying sometimes the accuracy is very high and sometimes it's absolutely zero. That's simply because you're not choosing the right options for the right reasons. See, it cannot draw predictive models unless and until it has studied all the individual cases. No. Remember, induction does draw up the predictive models even if it cannot study each case. It makes generalizations about those cases and it draws up a model. So this choice is saying it cannot draw up a predictive model. This part is wrong. Unless and until is like saying it's a necessary condition that they have to view individual cases, all the individual cases. But that's not so, right? They don't have to observe all individual cases. They can observe a certain number of individual cases, draw generalizations from it, and then draw predictive models. So C, which a lot of you chose, is actually opposite in its intention. It's going against the intent of the paragraph. Yes, guys? Can you see? Yes, Nathan, good. So thank you so much, Vishwadeep. Vishwadeep liked the way the passage was written. One of my favorite topics, induction and deduction, or as we call in Latin, a priori and post priori way of reasoning. All right. So very interesting. Yes. If you read the whole thing, it's even more interesting. Frankly speaking, I am not the pure author, but yes, I have put together the idea altogether. All right. Okay. Great. Yeah. So the way the choice has been put together in B, that is incorrect. All right. Let me quickly move on to the other. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I said B, I think, no? Not B. C is put together. The way it has been put together, it is incorrect. Similarly, D. In D, we are saying that its predictive guides, that is, induction's predictive guides, are all built on the basis of imprecise observations. Well, some of the observations are precise because they are direct. Some of the observations may be imprecise, the ones that are made based on generalization, but we can't say they are all built on the basis of imprecise observations. So D is out. It is ultimately used for making general predictions. This is the function of the process of deduction. So ultimately, we are using, that's not the problem of induction, that you are using induction to make prediction. The problem of induction is you are using deduction to arrive at these models which are going to make certain predictions. So E is actually talking about the function of deduction. Function of the process of deduction and not the problem of induction. So E is also out. Clear, guys? Now, I have some very important information to give you guys. Asim has a question here. In option C, it hasn't really then drawn up the predictive model then. So if we quickly go back to C, we are not saying that it has not drawn up the predictive model. We are saying it cannot draw up the predictive model unless and until. That was not the case. Observing all individual cases was not a necessary condition for drawing up predictive models, but this choice says it is a necessary condition. So that is why it is out. Okay. So Asim, yes, it has relied on generalizations, that is deduction, and that is the problem. So it's the framing of the answer choice, which you have to pay attention to. Okay, guys, so as I said, let me quickly impart you a very important piece of information. This is the very important part that you guys have going on. You are thinking about this, right? And that is, what about the time? Now, as I've said already, initially it may seem time consuming, and it probably is. But that is true for any skill that you learn. With practice, this process becomes second nature. On a lighter side, when I'm reading a menu in a restaurant, I'm actually reading it like this. It's become such a second nature. If I'm seeing a hoarding or a billboard on the road, I'm reading it like that. So it becomes second nature. Give yourself some time. Okay, be kind to yourself and be patient with yourself. And then what will happen is you will be able to map the passage, understand the flow of ideas, and derive the author's point of view. You've seen me do it effortlessly, right? You can also do it. Did you think I had to put in some extra effort? And I did all of this while explaining it to you. Think when you just have to understand it by yourself. It won't take so much time. And we are going to talk about the irony of time very quickly, guys. But before that, I'm launching a crash course beginning 5th June. All right. Let me post the link to this crash course. You can register for it right away if you want. So I'll just give you the details about this crash course also in a moment. Thank you, Sniper. So there is the link for this crash course where you can register. It's there on your screen. Let me quickly give you a little bit of info about this crash course. So this crash course will be a series of 25 sessions. All the sessions will take place over the weekends. So you'll have one class on Saturday, one on Sunday. Okay. The sessions will be equally divided almost into verbal sessions and quant sessions. I'll be taking all the verbal sessions. The verbal sessions will be divided into CR, SC, and RC sessions. All right. And you will have this session will be over a period of, I think, 2.5 months, but you'll get access to the entire course for 4 months. All right. And you can obviously upgrade the course later on. So if you want to register for that course, the crash course, please, the link is out there for you. You can just register yourselves for the crash course. So here we conduct the sessions over, you cannot see me there, but it's almost like this, but you can interact with me more directly. Okay, you can post your doubts, you can get your problems cleared, your issues cleared, you can ask me any questions related to the concepts that you will be studying, and so on and so forth. You're welcome, Asim. My pleasure. In fact, I kind of almost forget myself and the time when I'm into this. It's fun interacting with such an interactive audience also. All right, guys. Now I'll quickly talk about the time thing, because I'm sure most of you would be wondering that all of this will go to waste if the time factor falls through. All right. So let me quickly I'll bring this up again later on. So let me just, I hope you can, guys, can I remove this link here? Have you guys taken note of it? Okay, so that's the link for registration on the crash course. All right, let me quickly talk to you about the irony. So there was another passage planned, but we don't have time. Let's move ahead. Now, usually what we do is we just you try to draw an inference only from a localized portion, it won't work. You have to understand the overall context. And that's what we call the global inference. Having a complete understanding, a holistic understanding of the passage. So looking at the question and searching for the answer doesn't work. That's actually a trap. Okay. In fact, students realize this trap after after practicing thousands and thousands of passages. Okay. And we saw some traps just now, distortion trap. You fall for some familiar words. Some similar traps that we teach at GMATWhiz, students know are these traps. Confusing words, qualify, question, highlight, argue, limited scope. Okay, you are not covering the entire scope. All right, opposites, out of scope, generalization, irrelevant. And usually you realize, you understand these, you come to understand these traps after a long tedious and despairing process. But a GMAT with students starts off with these right away. Okay, masters the approach of involved and evolved reading and learns about these traps and how to understand that GMAT is laying this trap. Okay, for every question you learn to eliminate each choice for the right reason. You can categorize each choice into a bucket and say, okay, this is a generalization, this is a distortion, and that is why it's wrong, this part is incorrect. Okay, and the best part is very important. The best way to master this approach is to have someone tell you that yes, you were also reading correctly. But who will tell you that? At GMATWhiz platform, what we do is for every passage, for every question, the solutions I have written them out personally. So when you finish solving a passage, you can actually check it against that solution to see whether you got the question right for the right reasons. If you did not, all your work is useless. Okay. And you cannot get the question right if you haven't read the passage in depth. So this is required. Taming the traps is required for mastering the approach, guys. Now, Akshat was one of our students, and I'm going to just share the link with you in a moment. You know, Akshat's debrief. If you want to go through it, our interview with Akshat, you can do that. Just give me a moment. Okay, just a moment, guys. There seems to be some. No. So there on the screen, I'm sharing a link, and that in that link you can go through Akshat's debrief to understand how he improved from a 650 to a 730 in just 24 days. Okay, here are some of the things that he did. He improved his understanding of the methodologies involved. Okay, he reviewed the solutions in depth for the correct questions. You don't get in-depth solutions for any of the OG questions. Okay, you all know what kind of solutions we have. Here the solutions are written out exactly the way I conducted the session today. He learned to identify the patterns in incorrect answer choices. That made life easier for him. He revisited the weak areas to improve that understanding. And that is how, in just 24 days, he was able to bring about that big an improvement. Okay. Most of all, he believed in himself during the test. He didn't doubt that this will work, that will not work, I'll not be able to understand, I'll be able to understand, I'm taking more time, I'm taking less time. All this he sorted out while he was practicing. Okay. So I hope you can see the link there, guys. I haven't shared the link. I'm so sorry. One second. I think it's showing now. So that's the link on which you can get a deeper understanding about Akshat's journey. All right. From 650 to 730. Now, quickly, the irony that I said I'm going to discuss with you. Let me quickly do that. Let me quickly go to that. Now, we will be at GMATWhiz, a student learns to understand the traps at the ACE stage, answer choice elimination, in detail. Okay. Now, here is the time saving irony. You guys were concerned about the time. See, most of you, all right, read you read too quickly in the first 2-3 minutes, all right, because you want to get to the questions fast. You're concerned about the time, all right. You get a rough idea of what is mentioned, all right, and then when you go to the choices, you take 2 minutes per question because you actually did not get a very good idea of what was mentioned. So perhaps you had to reread. So overall time that you're taking for this passage is 9 to 11 minutes, although you thought that you were taking less time by rushing through the passage. You tell yourself, you console yourself, okay, I'm taking only 2-3 minutes to read. But when you are rereading, you're actually taking up more time. However, a GMATWhiz student learns to approach this passage a little differently. Read properly in the first time itself. You'll take probably double the time a normal or quick reader would take, somebody who reads the passage very, very quickly. But what will happen is you will get a crystal clear understanding of the passage. And therefore, when you're eliminating the choices, you're taking half the time per question. And the overall time that you take is saved. So as I said, haste makes waste, guys. All right. Don't fall in that trap. Let me just remove the link. Just give me a moment. Yeah. Yes, Ashutosh is asking a good question. Would you suggest a person to practice RC after SC and CR? Absolutely, Ashutosh. First SC, then CR, because you apply the skills learned in SC and CR and then in RC. Guys, I think there's another webinar which is about to start soon, so I'll have to sign off. Let me just quickly answer Asim's question. Is the crash course geared to be able to make round one deadlines? Yes, Ashutosh. I'll once again share the crash course screen with you. Absolutely, it is prepared to it is geared to make you ready for round one. 1 second. Just hold on. I'll just bring up the crash course. Yeah, absolutely. That's the crash course for you there. Okay. Average time for each to get a 40. So I think what you guys can do, since we don't have time and another session is about to begin on here itself. So what I want you guys to do is set up a call with Piyush on Calendly. I'll share the link once again with you very, very quickly. He'll be able to answer all your questions. All right, just give me a moment. This is a free of cost call. And as I said earlier also, Piyush is till date to my knowledge, the best strategist I've come across. Okay, there's the link for you once again. So all your queries will be answered, guys. So sorry for cutting this short. We are short on time, and I hope you liked the session. Please feel free to give your feedbacks or write to us at support@gmatwiz.com. So wishing all of you a very good day if you're starting your day, and good night if you're ending the day. Take care, guys.